Hello there, good afternoon. As the second phase of the ceasefire agreement in Gaza approaches, the situation remains volatile. While Hamas has made public commitments to continue with a detainee exchange and further negotiations, ongoing Israeli violations of the ceasefire terms are causing tensions. Israel's push to extend the first phase and delay the second is raising concerns about Israel's intentions. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is visiting the Middle East and has arrived at Tel Aviv. Will the second phase negotiations proceed as scheduled, or will they face further delays? How will the U.S.'s involvement shape the outcome of the ceasefire? And will Israel's reluctance to fully comply with the terms jeopardize the fragile peace process? Welcome to In Depth. So, Israel and Hamas completed their sixth exchange of detainees, with just 2 weeks left in the first phase of the fragile Gaza ceasefire. Despite tensions and a potential derailment of the ceasefire, Hamas agreed to proceed with the exchange after Egypt and Qatar pledged to facilitate the delivery of essential supplies to Gaza. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio arrived in Israel to begin his Middle East tour, with President Trump pushing for a controversial proposal to relocate Gaza's 2 million Palestinians, which has sparked rejection from Arab countries and Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, whose far-right allies favor resuming the war in March, faces growing pressure for a deal to bring all remaining detainees home. The second phase of negotiations has yet to begin, as Hamas said they will likely start next week, and it is expected to focus on ending the war in exchange for the release of all detainees. Negotiations on a second phase of the ceasefire, meant to lay out steps towards a more permanent end to the war, are expected to begin next week and are facing significant challenges. Despite recent prisoner exchanges, tensions persist, and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza remains unresolved.
As the deadline for the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire approaches, and despite the conclusion of the sixth round of prisoner exchanges between Israel and Hamas, tensions rise over Israel's compliance to start the second phase of negotiations. While Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the deal, reports of Israeli violations, along with intentions to extend the first phase to include an additional prisoner swap, threaten to derail the process. The first phase of the ceasefire, which began in January, has seen some progress, with hundreds of Palestinian prisoners released in exchange for 16 Israeli detainees. The negotiations for the second phase is expected to start next week. This phase is expected to finalize the release of all remaining detainees, discuss the complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and reach a final halt in fighting. Meanwhile, Israel seeks an extension for the first phase, citing security concerns, which has sparked further debates over the humanitarian cost of this delay. With the second phase of ceasefire negotiations expected to begin soon, mediators Egypt and Qatar are working tirelessly to facilitate talks between both sides. However, the situation remains precarious, and the future of Gaza's ceasefire is uncertain. Will the negotiations begin as planned, or will the agreement break down, leading to further escalation?
Now, to take us a little more in depth, we are joined here on Q News from occupied Jerusalem by Abdel Nasser Mekki, the political science professor, and from Cairo by Ibrahim El-Darawi, who is a writer and a political analyst. Welcome to you both. I'll start with you, Dr. Mekki. So we have, according to Hamas, the second phase discussions and negotiations to start next week. What do you think are the main challenges facing those negotiations, and do you think they'll go smoothly?
I think the most important things that here, or the challenge, it's about the first stage, which is not end and finished until now, as you know. So, according to this, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, is trying to extend the first stage to be like stages in the first stage. He didn't want to go to the second stage. This is the most important challenge in order to reach to the second stage. While, as you know, in the second stage, they will be discussing, as you know, about the Philadelphia corridor, and also withdraw from Gaza, the Israeli army to withdraw from Gaza. And this is, and also another thing, but the most important thing in our challenge here is that we didn't finish the first stage, and there is a problem here because according to the first stage and according to the agreement which had been agreed in the 19 last month, is that the Israeli should allow to the mobile houses to enter Gaza, and also for hundred thousands of tanks, and also some heavy equipment in order to that they could use it in order to for the construction, and to also to move all the demolitions because of the Israeli bombing Gaza. So I think this is the challenge here, and I hope that maybe this will be until the end of this week. But also, the foreign minister of the United States of America, Rubio, I think he came here in order to discuss this matter with the Israeli prime minister and also with the mediators, Qatar and Egypt. So this is the challenge. That the challenge is Netanyahu is not convenience to going to the second stage and finish all the that's a commitment.
And coming to you, Mr. El-Darawi, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has touched down in Tel Aviv. What might that mean, the visit to Israel by Marco Rubio? What might that mean for the negotiations of the second phase, do you think?
I believe this is a crucial visit. It is certainly important for the finalization of the deal, and also to probe into the possibilities of the forthcoming Arab League meeting, heads of state. And I know that Cairo is working very hard on making this visit, to making this deal with the Palestinians to happen without any possible forced migration of Palestinians. And I believe this is becoming, of course, an Arab issue. And on the 27th of this month, there will be an important Arab League meeting, and the issue will be raised because we believe that this is truly a genocide against the Palestinian people, if ever it happens. And I believe the fact that there would be the presence of a Zionist state in the West Bank will certainly be one of an explosive nature. And unfortunately, this is a solution that is strongly recognized and by the United States. And today, this is people are claiming that this is the solution, but in reality, it's all relying on the forced migration of the Palestinians. And the West Bank is already witnessing some sort of a migration that is happening. And there is one then in the Netanyahu government he said that in 2025 there will be a massive demolition of houses in the West Bank, which is already happening there. And I believe that this is going to be important. And I believe that it is. I know that Saudi Arabia is also involved in that indirectly in this, and I believe again that the entire Middle East is on the brink of a big fire. I believe it's a very, very humiliating situation for the U.S. government, and I don't think that this will be certainly come to any some sort of conclusion unless there is some sort of comprehension on the American side, because the presence of a Palestinian state, according to the borders of pre-1967, is the only guarantor of a sound state. And if I remember, Mr. Trump has, in his first tenure, has been already in favor of this, and whatever Mohammed bin Salman, the heir to the throne in Saudi Arabia, is very much pushing in favor of this solution. I also suggest that believe is that there is an important role for allowing the humanitarian aid to reach, and I believe this will certainly give a big push. But the real guarantor to actually for the guarantee for the sound exchange, remains the American side. This is the only way to put pressure on the Netanyahu government and to enforce some sort of an agreement between both parties.
Well, coming back to you, Dr. Meki, feel free to comment on what Mr. Al-Darawi has just been saying. But also, of course, we have a situation where Israel are committing violations of the ceasefire already. There's a reluctance and pressure on Netanyahu not to proceed with the ceasefire at all. And then we have Hamas, who are committed to the second phase of the ceasefire. How significant is that?
I think the Hamas now is commitment to the going to the second stage, but according to the agreement, it should be also committed by the Israeli, because the Israeli also they agree and also they sign in the agreement last month. So because of this, I think it's important that the Israeli government should go ahead with this. But the thing is that there are many things that happened. You know that after the agreement had been signed, like the statement and declaration of the Trump when he said about the displacement of the Palestinian and he will go and dominate it over Gaza. So it's also this statement gives Netanyahu in order to raise his demands, and also he was going with Trump that he wants Gaza to be also displacement, the people of there to be displacement, and also he tried to put new conditions, like he said that he will not allow to enter all the heavy equipment and also the houses until they release the 6 prisoners or detainees next week, which is not according to the agreement. So this is coming because of Trump said that he want last Saturday that Hamas should release all the the detainees, otherwise they will go to the hell. So I think it's important that Rubio is coming here, and also at the same time, I think also the Qatar and Egypt also they're important, but the most important thing is that Arabs should go on 27 in Cairo, and they should also determine and organize their demands and to focus on Gaza, that the people of the Gaza will not go out of Gaza, and also at the same time the reconstruction of Gaza should be there with the existence of the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Coming back to you, Mr. Al-Darawi, we've got Israel calling for an extension of the first phase. Do you think it's likely that there's going to be a delay? We've got 2 weeks left on the clock of the first phase. Do you think it will be extended?
I believe that Israel is trying to extend the brink of war. Mr. Netanyahu does not want to finalize the deal the way the Americans do it. But I must say that today the actual Israeli media are trying to set up the Palestinians so as to put the blame eventually on either of the parties. But I believe that Cairo and all the middle parties and third parties, including Qatar and the United States, and the admission of humanitarian aid into Gaza is certainly very important, because this is one way of actually avoiding actual hunger in Gaza. I must say that the vision of Egypt in the light of the current portfolio of Gaza is very crucial. And the third, and the admission of the humanitarian aid is important. It is also imperative also to put an end to the war in Gaza. And Cairo has put all the pressure that is required to make sure that this war comes to an end. But I believe that there is some sort of an agreement, though I would say it's more of people agreeing more to disagree. But I believe that all this will be discussed during the Arab League summit due on the 27th, and will certainly be heavily mediatized. And I believe that it is an imperative that the actual deal has to be finalized as soon as possible, and there is intense pressure on Mr. Netanyahu on this, and already there is pressure from the United States in this respect, and in fact Mr. Netanyahu asked for a three-phase solution instead of one, which means that this is more of a bold strategy, and that the problem remains in the second deal, because I believe that the devil is in the details. But I believe if there is a will among the American administration to finalize this deal, it will be. It will be. But will this happen? It is, unfortunately, it's all a gambit. It's all a game that is being played by either party, and Hamas is already using this as a strategic move to remain on the checkboard as a main player. And I believe if there is to be a clear mission, clear vision, it is important that there should be a Palestinian Authority that is capable of taking decision in this respect, and this is a consensus in the Arab world. And like during the meeting with Mr. Biden, including the meeting of the Arab ministers of foreign affairs previously, and a call therefore for a Palestinian state that would be back to the 1967 borders without any compromise whatsoever. This is the big bet, and the bet is on the table, and I believe it's all what is in the game, what is on the betting floor remains Gaza, and I know the crisis will probably be increased, although that, in my opinion, eventually the deal will come to be concluded, and the second part of the deal should have been on the day 16 of the deal, which means that we are one whole week late over the agreement in the actual, and unless the internal problems are resolved, there will be no final resolution to the problem. And I remember the visit of the Secretary of State of the U.S. into the to the region is a crucial element, and there are, of course, a lot of allusions from Mr. Prom that we are heading in the proper direction. However, but the displacement of Palestinians remains the main culprit, and unless there should be a Cairo initiative that really should come to light, and this is in my, and I'm definitely sure that there will be an Islamic and Arabic support of this in favor of the Palestinians in Gaza and the occupied territories.
I want to circle back to the conversation about the negotiations and the discussions and the end of the first phase, Dr. Mekki. Israel's pushing to extend the first phase of the ceasefire, as I was just asking Mr. El-Darawi. What do you think's behind Israel's want to do that? What are Israel's goals behind such a step?
I think this is the what is happened is that Netanyahu, he is the person that he tried to extend this stage. This stage, as you know, they have many things should be done, and this is agreed in the agreement between Hamas and between Israel with the mediators, Qatar, United States of America, and also Egypt. So what is behind this is that Netanyahu, he didn't want to go to the second stage, which means that if he go to the second stage, that means he will allow to that the house, all the protocol, the humanitarian protocol will be commitment and fulfill. And that mean the mobile house will enter Gaza, and that mean the concept and the principle of displacement will go out, and that means that the people of Gaza will stay there, and this will lead that Netanyahu has failed in the war, and this will influence on his coalition inside the government, because Smotrich, reading him, said that if he go to the second stage, he will the government, which will collapse his government. And that's mean that Netanyahu will go the second day to the jail. This is what Netanyahu is trying to extend. Why Netanyahu trying to extend the second stage, to extend the first stage, is he didn't want there in order to keep himself and to keep on his coalition on the government. So I think this is the main objective the first stage from Netanyahu and from his government also.
And coming back to you, Mr. El-Darawi, I wanted you to look into the future for us just a little bit. What do you expect from the second phase of negotiations, and how do you think the outcome will be? And do you think Israel truly wants to proceed with the deal?
The exchange will certainly proceed under American pressure, but Netanyahu is trying to achieve the maximum benefit out of this. But there is a very strong will from the Arab countries to make sure that there is sound reconstruction, there is good humanitarian. This is one of the imperatives of Cairo in humanitarian is pouring from all the four corners of Egypt into Gaza, and there has been a lot of frictions, and there have been a lot of problems at the Rafah crossing point, and the cross. This is a very hot border, and I believe that there should be a very important American role in this. The first is that Netanyahu has to come under pressure so as to that eventually come to conclude a deal, because this is the only way you can have you can graze the people from every problem. But but also it is possible also that Mr. Netanyahu would be willing to sacrifice all the prisoners,
yeah, that is a possibility. I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut it short because we are out of time. But thank you so much for joining us on the program. To both my guests today, that was Ibrahim El-Derawi, a writer and political analyst, and also Abdul Nasser Mekki, a political science professor. Thank you both for joining us here on Q News. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.